Welcome back, everyone, to the Fluid Fan Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ruggiero, four-time Olympic medalist and CEO and co-founder of this great company, Sports Innovation Lab. On this podcast, we talk about trends, technologies, fandom, innovation in general. We're really trying to help the industry better understand the Fluid Fan. That's the name of this podcast, obviously. So I like to bring in experts. I like to, hear from the practitioners that are actually boots on the ground doing things to change sports. Today, though, I periodically bring in a member of our team because one, I love my team, but two, they're the ones doing the research and helping the client. So today's guest is Megan Perry. Megan is our VP of Executive Engagement and Women's Initiative and is a awesome voice, advocate for women in sport, advocate for just changing sports, making it better. That's why we hired her. She's amazing. She's a D1 college basketball player. So, no joke, a little Ivy League championship at Cornell. Spent a decade at the NBA front office working for the Wnba and has served as an analyst for CBS and others. She's here today to talk about some of the work she's doing for us, specifically around women's sports, the Fan Project, but more holistically around how we're trying to affect change in the industry. So I'm excited to welcome my colleague and great friend, Megan Perry, again, the VP of Executive Engagement and Women's Initiatives here at Sports Innovation Lab. Megan, welcome to the Fluid Fan Podcast.
Angela, thank you. You are like incredible hype woman. So I really appreciate that intro. So excited to have a chance to really dig in, talk with you, and say hello. Say hello to everyone that hasn't had a chance to hear from me. So
all right.
I'm thrilled to be on.
What's your walkout song? Do you have a walkout song, or did you?
Oh, good question. Man, I have to take it back to the days when I lived in Brooklyn. Biggie is kind of a thing. Any of the Brooklynites know about that. So it'll be a Brooklyn kind of like Biggie or Jay-Z song. I can't be specific, but yeah.
I love it. All right, I'll remember that next time we're hanging out karaoke. All right. So again, mention you're a former athlete. You've worked in the league office. You're here at Sports Innovation Lab now. Walk us quickly through your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, so, sports, I always say sports has been the common thread in my journey. I grew up as a young girl at a time when women's sports was really starting to really grow louder on the radar across just like the national landscape. And so I grew up playing basketball. I had the opportunity to play at Cornell University. So shout out to the Big Red, anyone that's listening. So I played 4 years of Division I college basketball there.
By the way, I just have to say the Big Red used to throw fish on the ice when I was playing at Harvard.
Yeah, so I can't speak for what I cannot speak for what was going on with that and with hockey specifically, but I know that rivalry was big time. I mean, I know it was lit as the youngins like to say these days. But I will say, we try to play and cheer with class. So my Big Red family, that was near and dear to my heart. As is the Ivy League overall, but yeah, enjoyed college basketball for 4 years, won an Ivy League championship, competed in the NCAA tournament, which is for women's basketball, was kind of like the marquee stage. And then from there, I've always wanted to be a part of amplifying and elevating women's sports. And right out of school, I had the opportunity to join the Wnba, the league office. And I spent about a decade there, working primarily on the business side for the first 3 years, working with our team presidents, to try to figure out, how do we optimize the team businesses for the Wnba primarily, but I did a little bit of work for the NBA. And at the time it was the D League, but now it's the G League. And then I transitioned over to the Wnba president's office specifically. And I oversaw our basketball operations and player relations activities, working really closely to do things like enforcing league protocol, communicating and being the primary liaison with the current and the former players, developing programming for them on and off the court. And then leading into one of my favorite projects there was a Wnba Draft. So being out there, looking and scouting talent and helping figure out who are going to be the first 12 to 15 women that we invite to Wnba Draft, and give them that moment and that stage to really like realize their dreams. That was one of my favorite parts of the work that I did there, being able to actually watch young women change their lives really before our eyes and having a hand in that. So, and not to be too long-winded, Ange, but from there, I got an itch to tell more stories. So during my time in the league office, I learned that not enough of the world knew about each of these incredible women, right? Their full stories, the dynamic athletes that they truly are. And so I left the WNBA at the end of 2016 and spent some time working in broadcast media. So joined CBS Sports and covered college basketball. So I could really continue my drive to amplify the voices of athletes and showcase not only who they are on the court, but do what I could to lift them up as the dynamic personalities they are off the court. So
you're like perfectly positioned to help us lead this thing called the Fan Project. You're like, you played it, you worked in sports, you want to amplify voices and build, new media models to get the word out.
Yeah, right? I get it. Absolutely. I so get it. And so that's why I was so happy to connect with you and join the Sports Innovation Lab family at the beginning of 2020, because I was looking for a space where, how can I continue to impact? How can I continue to work to elevate, to amplify, sports in general? But I like to lean into, women's sports. That's my history. But overall, like I want to change the landscape. I always say I want to voice. I want to be a stable voice in the community. And so what we're doing at Sports Innovation Lab is a perfect opportunity to do so. And for me, it's a different lens, like using the power of data, right, and research and information to do that. And so that's why, I'm happy to be here and continuing on the journey.
Well, you're obviously an amazing person. You're crushing it. That's why you're here. You get it. You're aligned to our values too. Such a big part of what we're building here at Sports Innovation Lab. When you joined, we were on the cusp of launching, as a lot of our listeners know, the Fan Project. And if you don't know what that is, it was really our goal to use real fan data, not surveys or observations or opinion, but data to unlock the business potential of women's sports. There's a lot of data out there that, again, enables us to understand sport. We're all in this analytical space now. We're getting religion on Moneyball, on the field, and now off the field. That's what this company does, what we're obsessed over. And to take some of our capabilities and position them towards women's sports was really interesting this year. Again, we had 10 million data points. And if you haven't checked out the report, the results of that report, check out thefanproject.co, where you can download it for free. Megan, give us your thoughts on the findings from the Fan Project, because we're obviously going to continue this movement we've started. There's a lot of conversation and an exciting announcement we'll make on this podcast around that. But what were the findings? Give us a quick and dirty on, what were the results? What do fans of women's sports want?
Yeah, well, I love what you said, Ange. I'll just pause for a second and say, like, what we embarked on with the Fan Project, it's more than even just a research report. It is a movement. To really be a catalyst, I think, to help transform the landscape of sports in general, not even just women's sports. And so when we stepped back and we were like going through the numbers and kind of figuring out, okay, well, what are the key findings? What do we want people to know? What did we find? I think one of the biggest takeaways is that this report, it confirmed some of what we intuitively kind of already knew, but could not put it down on paper. We have numbers to now back up the fact that women's sports fans are leaders, right? We're the early adopters, that we are digitally savvy, that we are super active across digital channels in ways that other communities have not recognized. And I think there's a lot of power in that to continue to unlock the business potential of the women's sports community specifically. But I would say the other major finding from this report is that there is a model. There's a new model in place, a new community monetization model. And when you think about women's sports specifically and how we have produced content, how we distribute it, and how we measured it. There has not been a model for that that's been consistent. And with the data that we collected, we now actually have the power to really advise influencers, executives, decision makers on how you should be engaging women's sports fans, how to produce differently, how to distribute the content, and how to measure it. And that's been the thing that's been missing for a long time. And so that's what I'm most excited about this report, to go out there and to continue the conversation about what's the fan project and what are we doing around it. Being able to activate that model is what actually fires me up.
So just summarize, fans of women's sports, men and women, are where the puck is headed. They are the most digitally savvy. If you've listened to how many podcasts have we had? We've had over 50. If you've listened to any of these podcasts, we've been obsessively talking about fan behaviors and how fans' behaviors are changing because of technology. We've been writing about this. My producer just said 63. Thank you, Jack. 63 episodes. We've been talking about the fluid fan. We've been helping clients from the NFL to the NHL to FIFA to UFC, the brands, the Coca-Colas, the MasterCards, the Visas of the world, the technology providers, the Googles, the Ciscos. These are all our clients. We've been talking about and helping the industry understand the fluid fan at a very high level because we've been studying it. We've been researching it. The fan project unlocked the data underneath these behaviors. And that's really important because the data, we were shocked. I was shocked. Oh my God, you're right. You cannot be a fan of women's sports and be lazy. You have to change your behavior to find the freaking content, to go online, to figure out where the game is. You can't just sit back and turn on the TV and it's there, or go to a game. You have to, the behaviors of women's sports fans, again, fans of women's sports, are different. They are the future, where these digitally savvy native consumers live and breathe. And that's super exciting. So I just want to underscore, you said that. I want to make sure our listeners get it. And then your second point, this community-based monetization model. We're going to dive into that again a little bit more. And I know we've had a previous podcast discussing it with Katie Donovan, but how can brands, leagues, and teams take what's in the report and start to apply it towards this community-based monetization model?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about, you said a lot there, so there's a lot wrapped up in it. When you think about brands and teams specifically, you know, I think a lot about like, well, how have some leagues, some very prominent leagues, been in understanding their fan base, right? And I think quite simply, Katie would probably hopefully tip the hat to me and say, Megan, you got it. When they think about how are we engaging their fan base, it's a simple shift from getting people to understand that it's not necessarily just the demographics of the fan base that they need to be paying attention to and evaluating. It's the actual fan behaviors, right? And so if you take a deep dive into the report to better understand what the behaviors are of the different fan bases that you are engaging, there's right now infinite new revenue streams and opportunities ahead for organizations, for teams, for leagues to really tap into. I think that's one of the most critical starting points, you know? And so I would say start there.
Yeah. So take these digitally savvy fans and put them in a digital community. There is so much upside, new ways to generate revenue, different ways than just selling tickets or sponsorship or linear media. That's the old model. And I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think you're right. That's important, but there's new ways, there's different ways. And again, as revenue diversification becomes more and more necessary to continue to grow as a sports brand, understanding the community-based monetization model is ever more important. So with that, we're going to continue this conversation around, it's not just a report we wrote, it's not just a one-time analysis. We've officially kicked off a partnership with espnW at the espnW Summit. We're here today. Again, this podcast is live now at Torrey Pines. Tell us about what we're doing, what we've done over the course of the last few days on stage with espnW around the fan project, and how we're really taking the first step in taking that report and turning it into action.
Well, listen, we've been busy, and Angela, you've been busy over the past couple of days. And so we're excited to have the opportunity to really collaborate with espnW, who really understands the vision and the importance of continuing to use data and innovation to drive the women's sports landscape forward. And so initially, one of the things that, we're excited to say that we've been a part of is espnW has what's called their espnW Power Talk. And Angela Ruggiero is on stage delivering a Power Talk, highlighting the FAN project, sharing with the world exactly what we've been up to over the past few months, what are the key findings of the FAN project report, and exactly how they can go about, the entire community can go about activating that report. So really excited to be a part of the espnW Power Talk series. The espnW breakout session was an opportunity for us to actually gather with executives there that are on-site, influencers, leaders across the sports landscape, to really break down elements of the FAN project report, right? To take action, to understand tangibly what they can do in their respective communities to carry this information forward, right? And then, and I won't say too much, and I'll let you kind of like tee this part up, but we are really excited. We have an announcement about how we are continuing the conversation with the FAN project report and really activating that moving forward with executives and leaders across the community. So the espnW Summit has been an amazing stage for Sports Innovation Lab and for the FAN project to work together to actually put action behind what has been really a groundbreaking report.
Yeah. No, Laura Gentili, she's on our women's leadership board. I've known her. I went to one of the first espnW conferences, summits, I don't know, a decade ago.
You're an OG, Ange. You're an OG.
I'm an old lady now. Man, I'm getting old. I don't know what's going on, but I loved it. And that was back when I was in like sick shape. So they do yoga and they do all kinds of cool activities. But no, it's so fun to be back here. And I just, again, want to thank ESPN for the partnership here. But we're officially kicking off our next leadership board, the Women's Sports Leadership Board, where we've aggregated and invited only those brands, those properties, those technology providers, those media providers that are focused on women's sports, that want to dig deeper into this community-based monetization model. Again, you don't lift and shift the men's model. It's a different consumer. You should service them differently. And so this group is, I'm so proud to announce again, we're partnering with espnW to do this, but to kick off the next iteration of the FAN project. Again, it wasn't a point in time analysis. We really believe we're starting a movement around women's sports. And to do that, again, my approach has always been, don't just talk, like this is the action. This is our way to allow these leaders who have very important roles and big budgets to figure out, give them the data and the support to make a smart strategic move, invest more, support their gut in some ways with more data around this specific market. Because we cover, again, the men's market, we cover every sport. But in this situation, these executives, these C-suite executives want to talk to each other too.
Yep. No, I think, Ange, if you kind of step back a little bit, and everything that you shared is spot on. But when we first decided, okay, well, what can we do to impact the industry? How can we create change? Right? We started with the report. That was just the tip of the iceberg, right? Releasing the FAN project report. And we heard from the market there. We've gotten tremendous feedback from people across the industry that are like, well, this report is fantastic, but we don't want it to just sit on a shelf. We actually want to activate it. We want to put action behind it. And so when people say, well, what else are you doing? How are you continuing the conversation? We are activating it through our Women's Sports Leadership Board, which, like you said, is comprised of 20 plus C-suite executives across the industry that are primed to not only back it up with investment, but want to talk amongst, peers to be able to understand, how do we activate this model together, and to create collective action and to form an ecosystem that's really committed to driving investment. We are setting the stage and putting that foundation down to be able to really do the real work that will drive change.
I love it. Yeah. Again, WWE, Just Women's Sports, Facebook, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. We got the LPGA, we've got Monumental Sports and Entertainment, the Professional Hockey Federation, the International Tennis Federation. It's MasterCard, Visa, some pretty big names on this board that are committed to not just today, but tomorrow. And that's what I love to see. What we have great executives come on this podcast, but everyone is trying to affect change. Everyone's trying to figure it out. And, hopefully we're providing a way to dive deeper. As you said, the tip of the iceberg was the report, but let's go. Like, I'm an Olympian. I don't want to go half-ass. I know you don't. You're, captain of your team. You want to go hard. And again, we're just trying to take it to the next level with our research. So Megan, thank you for leading that. I know you're obviously leading all of our leadership boards that we provide access to our research and to each other in a really thoughtful, curated way so that leaders across the industry can get smarter together. So thanks for your leadership in this new board, but also all the boards that we lead here at Sports Innovation Lab.
So appreciate that. And Ange, thanks for the opportunity for the platform. We at Sports Innovation Lab are committed to that work. And so I'm actually just really excited to continue to be energized by being able to form community and know that there's others out there that are just as committed. Because when we talk about, the sports landscape, I think we're at a pivotal point. And when we talk about women's sports specifically, this is something where with our Women's Sports Leadership Board, this is a prime opportunity. We know the momentum that's out there. Yeah. And so we just want to seize the moment and do what we said we came to do. Let's change the landscape.
Yeah, whether we're focused on women's sports, smart venues, media, our women's leadership board, which is just executives working across sports, our fluid fan board. For those of you that are listening, we have this amazing product we've created called Leadership Boards, just to level set. And you made a really good point, Megan. It was community, because I found the research we do or the research everyone's doing independently within their organization, sometimes it's just helpful to have someone to bounce some ideas off of, to other senior executives, just to say, look, you feel that pain, I feel that pain too, or you come from that angle, I come from this angle, and we learn from each other. I'm a big, life is a team sport. You can't do it alone. And what I recognized early on with some of the work we were doing is it was great to help members, individual organizations, but if you could bring that community together, so much more powerful. If you can solve very complex problems with multiple inputs, multiple sources of data, again, that's how you go harder, faster. So anyway, Megan, you're awesome. Thank you for your leadership here. Before we wrap, I wanted to give you an opportunity just to chat a little bit about just what we stand for at Sports Innovation Lab, because I've learned certainly a lot from you. And we're trying to take a different approach to the market. We're trying to obviously support our listeners, our clients, everyone with data and insights, with research, with analysis, market analysis. But to what end? Like, why is that important? What's the end goal here at Sports Innovation Lab, Megan? I'm going to turn over to you.
Yeah, no. So listen, thanks for the mic. I love that. I'll take the mic. The reason that I joined and many of my colleagues joined Sports Innovation Lab is because we're not just talking the talk, like we are led by an Olympian that walks the walk as well. And that's pervasive throughout our culture. And so when we step back, yes, there's tremendous power in the data. There's power in numbers. There's power in knowledge and information sharing. But at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out what impact can we have? What impact can we have to really drive change for the things that are near and dear to our heart? And it's about, one, finding something to rally around to create that community. We keep coming back to that, an inclusive community that wants everything to be better for all. So we talk about, women's sports, but the sports community as a whole, we know the problems that exist across the landscape, but we are all passionate and really understand how information and data can be that driving force that can really lead the way. We're change makers here. We're committed to understanding, not just what can we do right now, but what does the future look like, right? We're innovators, hence the name, Sports Innovation.
Yeah. No, I love it. Thank you for those kind words. I reflect back to a report that we will actually launch earlier this year. We'll do again in 2021, the top 25 most innovative teams in sports report. So we're on a mission to help sports understand innovation and change and help them get there quicker. We've thought about this report, and it's all data driven. It wasn't, us sitting in a room picking winners. What's the data going to say? But it starts with like, what was the foundational pillars that we should assess innovation against? And so one thing we've talked about here already is revenue diversification. That's so important. That is the community-based monetization model. New ways to drive revenue in a digital environment is the future. So revenue diversification. 2, it was technology investment. Are you building the experiences, investing in the right technologies that enable these, fan engagement, fan experience? Sometimes that's a cost, and sometimes that's a direct corollary to revenue. So are you investing in tech? Are you driving new and innovative ways to drive revenue, which is essentially getting more people into your funnel, giving them access to your brand? The third pillar I do want to touch on quickly is organizational agility. Because if you think about, I love at business school, culture each strategy for lunch. In some ways, you could have the great strategy, you can be investing in the right technology and revenue, but if you don't look the part, if you're not diverse, if you don't have access to new original ideas, we are obsessed over like, there is a cultural piece of innovation that doesn't tend to get discussed. And, whether it's people of color, whether it's different languages, whether it's, men and women being included, we are, I hope, talking about walking the walk, trying to do more to help this industry understand it's not just investing in tech for tech's sake. It's having that whole suite of understanding of like, what do you need to affect change? And culture is such an important element of this. So Megan, I don't know if you want to add anything here to just how this report and what we're trying to do, and what I love watching some of our clients do each and every day. They get it. Change is freaking hard. It's so hard to change, but to innovate and drive change forward, having more voices at the table, having more understanding of others, maybe data allows you to see, I didn't realize there was a market opportunity in women's sports. I'd never seen it before. That's an interesting way to go about, or listening to someone that doesn't look like you. Maybe you can layer in a little bit on that last pillar just to wrap, because, we talk so much about the technology and the fan and the revenue, but like this cultural element to sport that I find tends to get overlooked, and you totally get it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, listen, nothing can be done alone. And if you are not, if you look through the business lens specifically, the more people, the more diverse your audience, the more you can engage along the way, the more powerful you are, the more revenue you will generate, just from the business lens perspective. But if you are truly serious, and as this company is about being an innovator, that means you are inclusive of all, and you are leading and setting the stage for everybody to be able to participate, and you are hearing all voices. And that is something that I think when we talk about organizational agility, like the numbers, the data can really kind of inform maybe where it's lacking, where to lean into a little bit more, but the organizations that do that best, find the most success. And I think something that's often missed is, yes, it's about what you're doing well, but it's also about how you're making people feel along the way. Mm-hmm. And if you are able to prioritize diversifying the stage, whatever stage that you are on, you're going to, in the end, I think, win the day, because people recognize that. It makes them feel good. It's going to want to make them feel a part. And that really is, I think, looking forward and being inclusive. That's what I consider the definition of innovation.
I love it. I love it. Drop the mic. Megan Perry, VP of Executive Engagement and Women's Initiatives here at Sports Innovation Lab. Keep up the great work. Let's keep helping our board members, our clients, the whole world unlock the new model for sport. Again, it's called the community-based monetization model. It's built off of these fluid fan behaviors that we talk about every single day on this podcast. You're awesome, Megan. Thank you for your leadership and thinking, and keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. So excited to be a part of this. So appreciate it.
All right. We're not doing 4 with 4, and I usually don't do this with my team when I ask. Just quickly, most innovative. I want you to give me one team, league, federation, or a product, or a person. And I'm surprising
It's
with this
so
question?
hard. It is
Give
so
me
hard.
something that what's the thing that you look at
Okay,
and you're like, I
I'm
want
gonna
that.
spin it. I'm gonna spin it. If you say, well, what is like who's the most innovative person? I cannot point to a person. I cannot point to a team. Innovation, I think, is informed through culture. I think culture helps define innovation. So it's really hard for me to say, oh, it's the NBA. It's not the NBA, it's the culture that exists behind the NBA that is the most innovative, that is the most influential, and that really is, I think, the catalyst for driving the changes that we see. So I cannot say it's one person over the other. It is the cultures that exist. And I think they're a good example, but even in tech as well. Like people always say like, oh, it's Jeff Bezos, it's Elon Musk. Like they're the figureheads, but what's the culture that they've created? That is what I think that's how I look at innovation. So I have to say, like, I cannot give you
but
one.
that's a great answer. Again, I'm culture and strategy for lunch. You could have the best laid out plan and investment, but if you're not built in such a way that prioritizes change and diverse thinking and, investment in new things that could disrupt the old cash cow, you're not going to win. So I love it. Culture. That's your innovation for today. It's culture. I love it. All right. Thanks again, Megan, for being on the show today. It's always lovely to have you and other members of my team share a look into our company's work. You've done a great job, obviously, since you joined this year and leading some of the specific work around the FAM project and our leadership board program. Want to close by just quickly thanking my producer, Jack Barlow, the rest of my team. We're always here for you. If you are interested in learning more about us, feel free to keep listening to this, subscribe to our show or wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn. You can check me out on my personal channels at Angela Ruggiero. But anyway, so great to be here today. Thanks for listening. Pumped about our new board, Women's Sports Leadership Board. More to come from that as we get together and hopefully change the industry together. Thank you for listening, and I'll check you next time on the Food Bank Podcast.